Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about the Mark 9 prototypes. So to give you some background on this was designed by Steve Horch and myself, Michael Moore. We approached the prop master from DS9 and said, hey, we've had the tricorder around for a while, so can we do an upgrade to it? And that prop master was Joe Longo, and he basically told me that, sure, I'll look at it. Not going to guarantee we're going to buy it, but I'll look at it. I took it upon myself to sketch something out, which so far I haven't found the original sketch yet, and created this wooden master. Now this wooden master, as you can see here, is a bunch of different materials. What this consists of is gelutong, acrylic, and a smearing of Bondo on this bottom section here. And as you look at the top here, you'll also see that we did originally have cut into it a recessed area for the front of it. But we determined that we didn't like the placement of that and it was too big of a hole. We also discovered that if we were going to be putting electronics in this, we needed to bring the line back from here to here because there just isn't a whole lot of room inside of this idea. We were trying to shrink down everything, trying to go with the idea that the next progression would still have a door to protect the screen and everything, but we were trying to make it thinner across the board. So after doing this and Steve and I agreeing on that we liked it, we did a vacuum form of it in clear plastic. Now this particular one here was one of the first ones we did off of this mold here. And then started indicating, that we're going to do this and we're going to do that. We were originally thinking about having the scanner protrude out the side slightly where you could push down on it and it would pop out further. So we started there and then we ended up not doing that because of the fact that we didn't know how much room we were going to have in there, and we also were trying not to thicken it up again. So that was that. So then after we decided what we were doing, we molded this and made this. This was a casting of this that we went back through, sanded, polished, to come up with this pattern, which is what we used to vacuum form the final prototype as far as we were concerned. We wanted to have windows up here like the other tricorders had, so you can get some light action going on here, as well as a screen here that you could still see. If they were doing a camera view from here, you could still see part of that screen, so you still had some things going on. Same thing here. So if this door is open, there's action going on everywhere on it. So then, from this, we vacuum formed a copy off of this mold. Once we had this, we would then go through and trim it off where we wanted. And then we thought about, we need a door for the bottom of this to hold everything in. And here is this. This is the original acrylic piece that we had made to be the door for the bottom of this. And this is cast, meaning that you would mold this and cast a copy of this, and that casting would get glued into the bottom of that. This is actually 2 sheets of acrylic that are 1/8 inch thick. I don't know if you can actually might be able to see it better here. There's an undercut right here, which is puts it on the inside edge of that, and then this outside edge here goes to where it gets trimmed off and it gets blended there. It also has, we would end up putting in threaded inserts into the castings so that making the door, when it's on here, would just slip inside and we would have 80 or 90 screws into it that would hold that plate on. Well, after we went to the trouble of actually making a prototype, which is this one, this is the first and only finished version of this that we made for the show. As you can see, we've got the graphics in here. We've got everything on and in here. This is a fully functional unit, but there are no batteries in it because I don't keep batteries in it because I don't want it to, the batteries to erupt and destroy everything. These graphics here actually have a clear over top of them to help protect the printed surface of the graphic. And if you see here, it says, let me see if I can get that so you can see it. Where it says Mark 9. Okay, so this was the first one we ever did. And we loved it. We loved it so much that Steve and I, not even knowing if we were going to be making any of these, went ahead and commissioned our electronics guy to make custom electronics for this. We installed them. This graphic here, I believe all of the graphics on here were made by a gentleman named Albright through one of our friends, Ron Nomura. Now, so as we were assembling this and having the electronics made and so on, we kind of discovered that we really don't have room, and we also didn't have time to actually make a scanner. Because still at this point, batteries were still an issue for props, whether they were too big or too small. And if they were too small, there wasn't enough power to run anything. So as you can see here, we've got 6 80 screws that go into one of these panels. This is just styrene. Inside of here is a circuit board similar to what the final Mark 9 and 10s looked like, but not exactly the same. So from here, this piece was presented to the prop master, who really liked it, and he goes, okay, so what are you thinking here? And I said, okay, well, you know, just take it over to Mr. Berman and see what he thinks. So Mr. Berman looked at it with the lights on and everything, and he goes, wow, that has a lot of lights in it that nothing else has had so much. It was very bright, in other words. He goes, but I don't like this front end. I don't like that front end at all. I had already told Joe that if there was something that he didn't like, just to take a marker or something and kind of put some dots saying that he wants it chopped off here or whatever. So right here, there are Sharpie dots right across the surface showing where he wanted that face to come to. So instead of being here, he wanted to draw it in, which is now what they are for the Mark 9 and 10s. So we went from there and ended up making a new tool for the bodies here. These became obsolete, but we kept them anyway because we actually liked it still. And we're hoping maybe we could kind of sneak it in someplace else into the Mark 9/10 body style. Now, this is the very first Mark 9/10 body style that was ever made. This is vacuum formed out of the same clear product as this, but as you can see, it's been cut back as requested. same kind of details and everything else as this one, but just shrunk down to fit into that space. He also told us he wanted something on the front, because if you notice, this one has no front lights. He decided he wanted front lights here, and for somehow he wanted us to include a medical scanner. But he didn't like the idea of thickening it up a little bit so that we could have the scanner like pop out the side, but that's okay. So we ended up making this version of it. Once again, this is a one-of-a-kind piece, as far as this is the only one we made as a prototype, which then this one went back to Berman to get approved. And once again, graphics with you know, clear on them to keep them from being destroyed over time. And he looked at it, saw all the lights working, and said, okay, we want to do it, but you have to guarantee us it's going to last longer than the Mark 6 and 7s that we're currently using. Now, he didn't say Mark 6 or 7s, I just know that. He just said the current tricorders we're currently using on Next Gen and Voyager. Because that's about the time, you know, you guys know the timelines on this. So we made this one up. We went back to our electronics guy, who wasn't very happy because he had a nice long board here. He had some space to put stuff. And then he decided to start redesigning the board entirely all over again. And that had to happen within a couple of days. And then once that happened, we had to show the board to Berman again so that we could show him how long it ran. Once we actually built the circuit, Joe Longo didn't want to see one and take it to Rick Berman unless it was a finished or semi-finished. So the electronics in here were ended up getting kind of gutted a little bit, and we ended up doing the battery test on this unit. This unit on constant power, meaning that every single LED is on or flashing, we ended up having this particular prototype burn constantly on for about 4.5 hours, just sitting there with a timer next to it. When we told that to Joe Longo, he was pretty ecstatic that he wasn't going to have to change batteries every 30 minutes during a production. So in the end, we continued after we made the first, I believe it was 10 or 12 of them, because half of them went to DS9, the other half went to Voyager. And the interesting thing about it was we continued to try and improve on the electronics. And we ended up having, at the end of it, we kind of stopped trying to improve it at a certain point because we had battery power functioning for over 24 hours before it would start dimming and the sequencing lights would stop working, which is kind of strange that the sequencing lights would die before the constant on lights. However that works out in the electronics world, I don't know. But that's what happened. So in many cases during DS9 and Voyager, in the first month or so, they continued to change the batteries out every day, meaning once a day. But then it slowly became once a month, and then it became once a season, unless it was unless they were using the tricorders an extra lot. Most batteries were the same batteries at the end of the season as the beginning of the season with most of these props, because they weren't changing them. And in some cases, we would write on the battery the actual date we installed one of the batteries. And we would end up finding that same battery still in there. Now, originally, this ran off of 3 AAA batteries. We ended up installing a dual battery system, which was 2 or 3 batteries and 3 batteries. So we had 2 sets of batteries in here feeding power to this unit, which once again, that's the reason why they usually weren't having to change them out every season. But every season they would come back to us for refurbishing and so on, or if somebody dropped one and the magnetic switch, which is in here, this is the magnet here that operates the magnetic switch. I don't know if you can hear that. Here, let me put it up to the microphone. That clicking is the magnet turning on and off the switch. I'm not sure if the scanner works or not. This was the first version, so it doesn't have the clip in here, that, you know, the spring clip that holds the scanner in. This is literally just, I believe, a buildup of acrylic that we did on the part, and it's just a pressure fit. Yep, this one still works. Now, on DS9, this chaser bar here is red. On Voyager, these LEDs are yellow. Unless you're with a medical Mark 10 later on in Voyager, I believe it was. I'm not positive. The timelines for me, you know, there's so much stuff going on. These became blue with a different configuration of lights and detail here. But yes, the scanner is still working. There you go. But these two are the very first prototypes ever made of the Mark 9 and 10. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. And if you feel so inclined, please become a patron. Thank you.